Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome here at Al Madar. And today we are going to talk about ma'asi, sins. Now, when it comes to sins, we need to analyze the sins we do so that we can reflect, correct, and address our failings. But one way of doing so is to analyze what are the fundamental failings in our sins. So I want to sort of briefly talk over a few sins and what they essentially say about our character and how we can improve our character. Maybe improving our own character in one way could help us remove sins in another way. Let me explain. So let's start with the first one, lying. So we know that lying is something that is sinful. And lying, and let's first define that. Lying would be the deliberate informing of someone of something that is not true. And I added the clause deliberate because if I informed you of something that's not true and I didn't know it wasn't true, then I'm not a liar. I'm just a person who carried an incorrect tale or incorrect information. Obviously, if you always do that, then as the hadith said, it suffices to call someone a liar that they narrate everything they hear. That's gross negligence. It's not just negligence because you made a mistake once or twice, but you always do it. So therefore, you're as good as a liar because you don't pay any attention to verifying information before you narrate it. So lying has to be done deliberately to be actually called a liar. So I know that it's a Maghrib, for example, but I tell the person, no, Maghrib hasn't come in yet, or Maghrib's finished. That's a deliberate lie. Now, let's look at a realistic context. Someone asks you, did you get to work on time today? And you didn't. So you said to them, yes, I did. Now, what does the action of lying say about a person? What does it say about a person's character? I would suggest that lying reveals an underlying cowardice in an individual. A person is a coward. So if you're a person who's afflicted with lying, or you find it okay to lie, or you engage in lying, maybe analyze yourself and look at are you a coward? And the reason why I say coward is because what motivation does a person have to constantly lie other than the fear of the consequences of telling the truth? As in, because you are scared of what would happen if you told the truth, you therefore lie. So one way to try and address lying, other than just to stop lying itself and to ask Allah for aid, is to also engage in things that make you brave. So, for example, say to yourself, say to yourself in your mind's voice, you say, okay, if I tell the truth, I'm gonna get in trouble. But that's what it is. If that's what happens, that's what happens. I'll deal with the consequences because I did it. I did the action. It's my fault. I need to own the results. I'm going to be brave about it. I'm going to take ownership of my actions and I'm going to own it. So that's an example of being brave. That's why you tell the truth, because it is the truth, and because whatever happens, whatever consequences happens, you accept it. If you get punished for it, it is what it is. I accept it. I face the consequences bravely. That's one way of dealing with lying. Another one, zina. And when I say zina, I mean in a broad sense. Zina of the eyes, zina of there's various types of zina as described in a hadith. Zina of the tongue, as well as the actual zina itself. I would say that would be a demonstration of a person's weakness. They are weak. Because your nafs, and listen carefully, we have the conscious you, the soul, the you that chooses right and wrong, the part that knows right and wrong, and then you got the nafs that instructs you to fulfill what the body wants. So for example, what we are doing right now, we're fasting. So your body is informing you that you are hungry and you need sustenance. But your mind is saying, but I'm going to wait because I know the body can handle it. I know what the body wants, but I'm going to ignore what the body wants because as a Muslim, I want to elevate myself than just being an animal. Whereas a zani is essentially being an animal. Someone who succumbs to his desires and is unable to hold back his nafs. That's a zani. So, if you wanted to address that, you would, what we're doing right now, fasting, you would take up acts to help repress and control that inner beast. As they say, control the inner beast. That's what you would do. And the thing is, the inner animal, the inner beast, there's nothing wrong with it. Allah has created you to want things, to desire things. There's nothing wrong with that. But as a Muslim, we want to elevate ourselves beyond just being an animal who just does what the body instructs it to do. As Allah mentions, كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. They are like cattle, rather they are worse. Worse than cattle, because cattle do what they do because they're cattle. Whereas we do like what the cattle does, but we're not cattle. So we are worse than them because we have no excuse. How about another one, riba? One of the most evil and heinous crimes that unfortunately many Muslims belittle as if it's nothing. And this is on both ends. The one who gives out loans and wants interest in return, or one who takes out loans whereby they pay back interest in that regard. So the one who gives out loans and wants a return on his loan, I would say his illness, his sickness is selfishness. Someone is in need, he has loose cash he's not even using, by the way, because no one lends that money they need. They lend that money they don't need immediately. So a person who has cash sitting around doing nothing, and they can lend it to someone so they can come out of their situation, improve their situation, but rather you're going to make money off of that. That makes you selfish, makes you greedy. But if you're a person who takes out loans, as in you're not the one who gives that loan, but the one who takes out loans, what is your ailment? What is your character flaw? I would say you're impatient. You can't wait to save up. Think about it. If you took out a loan and that loan has to be paid back at some point, why can't you wait until that point? If you're going to take out a loan for like say 2, 3, 4 years and you're paying back in installments every month with interest, so then why can't you just save up for 2, 3 years? What is wrong with having patience for this period of time and avoid being at war with Allah and His Messenger? So therefore, a way to address this illness and sickness, because it's wallahi is a sickness, of taking an indulgent in the riba, is to improve in your patience, which is what we're doing right now in Ramadan. We are holding back from food and drink, and we're exercising sabr, patience. How about those who break their fast during the daytime Ramadan without an excuse? Now, I would assume that not many, especially those who are watching this, are involved in such things, breaking their fast deliberately. But if someone was to do so, what would be the personal ailment in breaking one's fast? I would say is shameless, someone who is shameless. Why do I say shameless? Because Allah has described the fast as being something between his slave and Allah. Something that no one is exposed to, generally speaking, because you don't know you're fasting other than Allah. So this is something private between you and Allah. Yet you break that trust, you break that covenant, you break that fast. So if we have no shame, as in you walk around eating and drinking, knowing that Allah sees you, but you do it anyway. That's shameful. You have no shame. You have no hayat in yourself. That would only lead you to do such a thing. Much like a person who walks around naked, has no care that someone sees them naked, and they say, whatever, it's just whatever. That's someone who is shameless and has no hayat. Another one would be that backbiting. What would cause a person to do this major sin of speaking about someone which is truthful, that you know that they don't want to hear, don't want to speak about, or don't like? I would say the flaw here is low self-esteem, because at the root of speaking bad against someone or mentioning someone in such a manner is to elevate oneself. There's a saying I grew up with that whenever you point your finger at someone, there are 4 fingers or 3 fingers pointing back at you. Meaning that you're essentially trying to offset people's eyes from you by directing somewhere else. So therefore, that's actually a failure in itself. You actually feel deep down of your own low worth. So therefore, in order to address that, you try and lower others lower than yourself. So therefore, that is another sickness. And last example I will give will be zakah. A person has money to pay zakah but doesn't give zakah. What would be the personal failing? Greed. Why would it be greed? Let's have an example. Imagine you had £1,000,000. Your zakah will be £25,000. That's a lot of money. Whoa, £25,000 to give in zakah just like that? Oh, that's a lot of money. Actually, it's only 2.5% of your million you have. You have £1,000,000. Brother, akhi, you have £1,000,000 liquid, yours. And you've had it for about a year, or at least you've had money enough for the year, and now when the nisab is there, you have £1,000,000. Are you that greedy? That 2.5%, a tiny fraction you can't let go, whilst you're still keeping 97.5% of that money? You still want that small tiny percent? Greed. So the way to address that greed is to give even more sadaqah. Not just the zakah, but give sadaqah regularly. Reach into that pot of that remaining 97.2 thousand and try and set up a direct debit to a charity or something. Do something regularly, siphon off your wealth, so when it comes time to give the zakah, it's easy. Address the greed by fighting the greed, stamping out the greed. And the best way to stamp out the greed is to smash it on the head with the thing that greed hates most, which is giving. These are the kind of things you need to think about when it comes to assessing one's own sins. What character flaw do I have that leads me always to keep on falling into the same sin? And this hopefully will help you address that sin moving forward. We hope you find this video beneficial. Like this video, subscribe, and may Allah place barakah in your Ramadan and help you stay away from the ma'asi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.